The story of Julius Caesar is the story of a man who grew larger than his world. A man born into a collapsing republic who rose through fire and blood, charm and intellect, talent and ambition, until he reshaped history itself. To follow Caesar's life is to witness the transformation of Rome from a chaotic republic to the foundations of an empire. The tale feels less like ancient history and more like the biography of a force of nature. This story begins not with a mighty general or a feared dictator, but with a frail infant born into a world of turbulence, uncertainty, and political storms that would shape his destiny long before he drew his first breath. Rome in 100 BCE was not yet the empire we imagine today. It was a huge, roaring machine of politics, factions, wealth, and hunger. The streets of the capital were a contradiction of marble temples and filthy alleyways. Aristocrats in white togas debated philosophy and law inside the Senate, while outside, unemployed masses begged for bread. Power was shifting rapidly. Huge territories were being conquered, pouring wealth and slaves into the city, but with every victory, Rome grew more unstable. Factions battled for control. Senators used street gangs as political weapons. Corruption was so normal that honest politicians were considered strange. Into this boiling pot of chaos was born Gaius Julius Caesar, a child descended, according to his family's proud claim, from the goddess Venus herself. Yet divine ancestry did not protect him from the harsh realities of Roman life. His father, a respected official, died suddenly when Caesar was 16, leaving him the official head of his household. His mother, Aurelia, was a strong, educated, commanding woman with a reputation for discipline and intelligence. It was she who shaped the young Caesar, teaching him dignity, pride, and sharp political instincts. Caesar lived in a modest house on the Subura, a crowded neighborhood filled with noise, markets, smells, and people of every class. While he was technically a member of the patrician class, his family was not wealthy. He learned early that noble blood meant nothing without influence. His first test came during the rise of the dictator Lucius Cornelius Sulla. Sulla had seized power through a violent civil war and began purging his enemies. Caesar's uncle, Gaius Marius, was Sulla's greatest rival. For that reason alone, Caesar was marked for death. He was ordered to divorce his wife Cornelia, the daughter of Marius' ally. Caesar refused, a dangerous act of defiance. This decision revealed a defining trait that would follow him throughout his life, an unshakable belief that he was destined for something greater and that no threat could intimidate him. To save his life, Caesar fled the city. He hid in remote houses, bribed officials, moved through forests and countryside at night. At one point, he was captured by Sulla's soldiers and released only after paying a large bribe. The story goes that Sulla finally agreed to spare him but warned his allies, saying, "Take this man. You fools do not realize there are many Mariuses in this young Caesar." Sulla sensed something the world had not yet realized, that Caesar's ambition was volcanic, immense, and unstoppable. After Sulla's reign ended, Caesar left Rome to join the military. In Asia and Cilicia he proved himself fearless. He saved a commander's life, won the civic crown, a rare honor, and earned a reputation for calm leadership under pressure. Yet one of the most defining moments of his youth came during a journey across the Aegean Sea when he was captured by pirates. Most men would have begged for mercy, but Caesar was not most men. He treated the pirates as though they were his reluctant servants. When they asked for a ransom of 20 talents, he laughed and insisted they demand 50. He joked with them, wrote poetry for them, shushed them when they were too loud, and promised, without any attempt at humor, that when he was freed, he would return to capture and crucify them. The pirates had no idea that he meant every word. When he was finally released, Caesar immediately gathered a small fleet, hunted down the pirates, and carried out his promise. Yet even then, he showed a strange mercy, ordering that their executions be swift and painless. It was an early glimpse into his dual nature, ruthless yet capable of compassion, violent yet philosophical, ambitious yet strangely gentle. Upon his return to Rome, Caesar entered the chaotic arena of Roman politics. He dazzled the public with his intelligence, eloquence, and charisma. He spent enormous sums of borrowed money on public events, games, and celebrations. Crowds loved him, aristocrats feared him. The Senate grew uneasy with every speech he delivered, every law he supported, every popularity he gained among the common people. Caesar understood that in Rome, reputation was a weapon, and he wielded it masterfully. His ambitions pushed him higher. He became quaestor, then aedile, then pontifex maximus, Rome's chief religious official, by winning one of the most shocking elections in Roman history. Even then, he lived in debt so deep that it would have crushed any other man, but Caesar viewed debt as simply another tool. He needed popularity, and popularity required spectacle. But Caesar's true transformation came when he formed a political alliance with two giants of Roman power: Pompey the Great, the brilliant general, and Marcus Licinius Crassus, the richest man in Rome. Together, these three men created the first triumvirate, a secret pact to dominate Roman politics. It was not friendship that united them, it was necessity and ambition. They used their combined influence to control elections, secure land reforms, and gain positions of immense power. Caesar's reward was the governorship of Gaul. It was a vast region of fierce tribes, dense forests, cold rivers, and warriors who had no intention of bowing to Rome. For Caesar, Gaul was not merely a province, it was the stage on which he would carve his immortal achievements. The campaigns in Gaul lasted nearly a decade. Caesar led his legions through brutal winters, across hostile lands, against tribes whose numbers dwarfed his own forces. He built bridges over impossible rivers, fought massive coalitions of Gallic tribes, crushed rebellions, and even became the first Roman commander to invade Britain. His victories were swift, decisive, brilliant. He recorded every detail in his commentaries, written in simple and elegant Latin so that ordinary Romans could understand and admire his achievements. With each campaign, with each victory, his power grew. The Senate trembled. Pompey began to fear the monster they had created. Caesar's conquest reached its climax at the siege of Alesia, where he faced the greatest Gallic leader, Vercingetorix. The battle was a masterpiece of military engineering and strategy. Caesar, outnumbered and surrounded, built massive fortifications and defeated both the army inside the city and the reinforcing army outside. Vercingetorix surrendered, marking the end of Gallic resistance. Caesar returned a hero, adored by soldiers and celebrated by citizens. But he returned to a Rome that had changed. Pompey had aligned himself with Caesar's enemies in the Senate. Crassus was dead. And now, the Senate demanded that Caesar dismiss his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. Caesar knew that doing so meant ruin. He also knew that refusing meant war. And so, standing before the Rubicon River, the legal boundary he was forbidden to cross with his army, Caesar made the most consequential choice of his life. Alia iacta est, he said. The die is cast. With that, he marched into Italy, igniting a civil war that would shake the foundations of the Republic. Caesar's crossing of the Rubicon sent shockwaves through the Roman world. News spread like wildfire across the peninsula. Julius Caesar, the conqueror of Gaul, the general whose legions were undefeated, had marched his army into Italy in open defiance of the Senate's orders. The Republic that had endured centuries now stood on the brink of annihilation. Panic rippled through Rome. Senators vacated their seats, families fled the city, and Pompey the Great, once Caesar's ally and now his greatest rival, quickly realized that Caesar's legions were marching too swiftly for him to mount a defense in Italy. Pompey made a fateful decision. Rather than fight Caesar immediately, he would retreat eastward to gather a massive force. His strategy was to use Rome's vast resources, foreign allies, and the mighty fleets of the eastern provinces to build a war machine strong enough to crush Caesar once and for all. Caesar, with the brilliant speed and decisiveness he displayed throughout his life, moved through Italy with remarkable efficiency. Town after town surrendered without a fight. Many soldiers once loyal to Pompey defected to Caesar, swayed by his reputation and his extraordinary ability to inspire loyalty. Caesar was careful. He forbade looting, protected civilians, and presented himself not as a conqueror but as a savior of Rome, claiming he wanted peace but had been forced into war by corrupt aristocrats hungry for power. This political skill, this ability to frame war as reluctant duty, was one of the secrets of his success. As Pompey sailed across the Adriatic, Caesar marched to Spain, where Pompey's legions awaited. In just 40 days, Caesar defeated them without even facing Pompey himself. "I am going to fight an army without a general," Caesar reportedly said with characteristic confidence, "and then I will fight a general without an army." By the time Caesar returned to Rome, he had accumulated unstoppable momentum. He was appointed dictator temporarily, only to resign the position immediately after restoring order. This move was calculated. Caesar was showing Rome that he did not seek tyranny but stability. The truth, however, was more complex. Caesar understood that power obtained gradually, through appearances of restraint, was far more enduring than power seized suddenly. But the true test still lay ahead. In 48 BCE, Caesar crossed the Adriatic Sea to confront Pompey's main army in Greece. The journey was perilous. Storms scattered his ships, leaving him with only a fraction of his forces when he arrived. Against overwhelming odds, Caesar decided to proceed with what he had. His troops faced hunger, disease, and encirclement. Pompey's army was vast, well-supplied, and positioned strategically. But Caesar possessed something Pompey did not: soldiers who trusted him completely, and a mind capable of turning disaster into triumph. At the Battle of Dyrrhachium, Caesar suffered one of the worst setbacks of his career. His lines broke and his men were forced into retreat. For a moment, it seemed Pompey might finally crush him. Caesar later said, "Today the victory would have been Pompey's if only he had known how to win." Pompey, cautious to a fault, failed to pursue the opportunity. Caesar regrouped, recovered his losses, and prepared for the decisive confrontation that would determine the fate of Rome. That confrontation came at Pharsalus. Under a blazing summer sun, the armies of Caesar and Pompey clashed on a plain in central Greece. Pompey's troops outnumbered Caesar's nearly 2-1. Senators who had fled Rome stood behind Pompey, ready to watch Caesar fall. But Caesar, cool and calculating, arranged his troops in a formation designed to counter Pompey's superior cavalry. What happened next was a masterpiece of tactical genius. As Pompey's horsemen charged, Caesar's hidden reserve units counterattacked with brutal precision. Pompey's cavalry panicked and fled, exposing the flank of his infantry. Caesar's legions surged forward like a tidal wave. Pompey's lines crumbled. The senators who had expected to celebrate a victory watched in horror as their side was annihilated. Pompey himself fled the battlefield disguised as an ordinary soldier, his dreams of power shattered. Caesar had won. He had defeated the greatest general of Rome and the combined might of the Senate. Yet Caesar did not celebrate. He knew the war was not over until Pompey was dead. Pompey fled to Egypt, seeking refuge with the young King Ptolemy XIII. But Ptolemy's advisors believed they could win Caesar's favor by betraying Pompey. And so, as Pompey stepped onto Egyptian soil, assassins murdered him and presented his severed head to Caesar when he arrived. Caesar, upon seeing the head of his former ally and son-in-law, reportedly covered his face and turned away, unable to bear the sight. It was a moment that revealed Caesar's deeply human capacity for grief, even for an enemy. Egypt, however, became not an end but an entirely new battlefield. The Egyptian court was embroiled in a bitter struggle between Ptolemy XIII and his sister, Cleopatra VII. Cleopatra, brilliant, cunning, and ambitious, understood immediately that Caesar was the key to her survival. According to legend, she arranged to be smuggled into Caesar's chambers rolled inside a carpet. Whether the story is exaggerated or true, what is certain is that Caesar was captivated. Cleopatra possessed a political genius that matched his own. Their union was as strategic as it was romantic. Caesar supported her claim to the throne, fighting a fierce war within Alexandria's narrow streets and palace grounds. The conflict culminated in the burning of part of the Great Library of Alexandria, one of the greatest cultural losses of antiquity. When the dust settled, Cleopatra ruled Egypt as Caesar's ally. Their relationship deepened, and Cleopatra soon bore Caesar a son, Caesarion. Their bond alarmed many Romans, who feared Caesar was becoming too entangled in foreign affairs and foreign queens. But Caesar seemed unbothered. He spent months in Egypt, experiencing its luxury, its culture, its scientific wonders. Yet Rome still called to him and more enemies awaited. From Egypt, Caesar journeyed to the Middle East and then returned to Rome, only to depart again to defeat the last remnants of Pompey's supporters in Africa and Spain. Each campaign showcased his relentless determination. Even in his 50s, he rode at the front of his army, slept on the ground, endured storms, thirst, and exhaustion. When he defeated Pompey's sons at the Battle of Munda, he finally stood unchallenged as the master of the Roman world. Now Caesar returned to Rome not as a general seeking power, but as a ruler holding it. The Senate appointed him dictator for 10 years, then dictator for life. He wore the purple cloak of kings. Statues of him rose across the city. His face appeared on coins. Crowds hailed him as father of the nation. But admiration was mixed with fear. Rome had outlawed kings for centuries, yet now stood a man who seemed to embody one. And here, at the height of power, the seeds of his downfall began to grow. The Rome that Caesar returned to after defeating Pompey was a city that looked familiar on the surface. But at its heart, it was transformed beyond recognition. Streets were crowded with merchants again, temples reopened, and triumphal arches gleamed under the Mediterranean sun. But the old spirit of the Republic, the sacred balance between Senate, consuls, and people, was now fragile, shaken by years of civil war. Everyone knew Rome stood at a crossroads. And at the center of this new reality stood one man, Julius Caesar. As Caesar entered the city for his grand triumph, thousands gathered on rooftops, balconies, temple steps, cheering with raw emotion. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze. Soldiers who had followed him across 3 continents marched proudly behind him, laurel wreaths tied around their brows. Captured prisoners, foreign kings, exotic animals, and carts filled with unimaginable wealth rolled past the crowds. But Caesar himself rode slowly, almost somberly, like a man aware of the weight of destiny pressing upon his shoulders. He had won wars beyond counting. He had subdued Gaul, shattered Pompey, crushed rivals in Spain, Sicily, Greece, and Africa. But now he faced the greatest challenge of all, governing Rome itself, a place whose citizens loved him, envied him, feared him, and depended on him all at once. Over the weeks that followed, Caesar reshaped Rome with the precision of a master engineer. He reformed the calendar into the Julian system, giving the world a structure still used almost everywhere today. He rebuilt cities destroyed by civil wars. He cut debts, stabilized grain supply, enacted laws to reduce corruption, and even brought thousands of veterans home by giving them land and livelihood. Foreign traders flooded the empire. New bridges, aqueducts, and forums sprung up like seeds planted in fertile soil. Yet for all his achievements, a shadow grew behind him. To the traditionalists, especially the senatorial elite, Caesar's efficiency, his ability to execute sweeping reforms without endless debates, felt less like good governance and more like monarchical power. The republic was built on checks, balances, and shared authority, and Caesar's presence seemed to eclipse them all. He didn't call himself king. But some whispered, maybe he didn't need to. Brutus was no ordinary Roman. He descended from Lucius Junius Brutus, the legendary founder of the Republic who had overthrown the last king. His family name itself was a symbol, a reminder that no Roman should ever allow one man to hold absolute power. Caesar admired Brutus deeply. Some believed Caesar once had a romantic connection with Brutus' mother, Servilia. Others said Caesar viewed Brutus as the son he never had. Whatever the truth, their bond ran deeper than politics. But Brutus was torn. On one side stood Caesar, his mentor, his protector, the man who had spared his life after the Pompeian War. On the other stood the Republic, the ideals his ancestors had died to defend. Cassius, sharp-tongued and fiercely Republican, sensed Brutus' inner conflict. Day after day he worked to turn that conflict into conviction. When Caesar rises, Cassius whispered one night as they walked along the Tiber's edge, Rome falls. Is that what you want your legacy to be? Brutus remained silent. But the seed of doubt took root. Then came the moment that changed everything. During the festival of Lupercal, Caesar sat on his golden chair before a roaring crowd. Mark Antony, his loyal ally, stood beside him, energized by the people's cheers. Then, in a theatrical gesture, Antony lifted a small crown, a diadem, and held it before Caesar. The crowd gasped. Time seemed to freeze. Antony placed the crown into Caesar's hands. For a moment, the world held its breath. Caesar raised his arm, examined the crown, and pushed it away. The crowd erupted, some in relief, others in disappointment. But here was the problem. No matter how theatrically Caesar refused the crown, many sensed something different, an unspoken message, a test of public appetite. Caesar knew exactly what he was doing. His refusal was both a statement of humility and a demonstration of power. The senators were terrified. Brutus felt the Republic slipping through his fingers. Cassius saw opportunity, and the conspiracy began to take shape. Night after night, conspirators met in secret, speaking in hushed tones behind closed doors, planning what they believed would save Rome. Their plan was simple and deadly: assassinate Julius Caesar, the man too powerful to control. They believed they were defending the Republic. They believed they were rescuing Rome from tyranny. They believed history would praise them. But hidden beneath these noble ideas were personal grudges,